Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Practice Forward podcast. I'm your host, Owen Bush. Today, we're joined by Omar Clennon. Hey, Omar, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you on the show. So just to introduce Omar briefly, Omar Clennon is the founder and principal of Clennon Design Studio, a boutique architectural practice based in Oyster Bay, New York. Omar's work elegantly weaves narrative storytelling, adaptive reuse, and sustainability into thoughtfully crafted residential and hospitality spaces. His commitment to treating spatial constraints as creative opportunities and his multidisciplinary approach, including insights from music and narrative, offer a fresh perspective on how architects can lead with intentionality and clarity amid change. We're thrilled to explore with Omar what it means to practice forward today and how he's guiding his studio toward a future shaped by precision, relevance, and visionary reuse. So thanks for being here today, Omar. Are you joining us from lovely Oyster Bay today?
That's correct. Yep. Our offices are located right downtown Oyster Bay off of Main Street. And we're here right now.
Excellent. So, well, before we dive into our conversation with Omar, we want to say a quick thank you to Scandaplan, who is the trusted name in BIM solutions for architects and designers focused on adaptive reuse and sustainability. At Clennon Design Studio, Omar approaches each spatial constraint as an opportunity where precision matters and uncertainty is not an option. So Scandaplan shares that commitment, and we deliver flexible, accurate, and reliable BIM data tailored specifically to architects' workflows, empowering you to focus on design excellence. For visionary practices like Clennon Design Studio, where heritage meets innovation, certainty truly lies in good data. Scandaplan is the measure of excellence. Our very generous sponsor. So, Omar, you say you have kind of a narrative component, a storytelling and narrative component in your practice. And how does that work? I'm not sure how that really works with architecture.
So great question. Before I jump in, I thank you for that gracious introduction. We are, as you mentioned, a small boutique firm that's fairly hands-on with all of our architecture and design projects.
Yeah.
We do a lot of residential and commercial work in New York and the surrounding states and along the Northeast. So to answer your question, Owen, so narrative storytelling, we have found, it's a great way to structure our design projects and our architecture projects for a few simple reasons. One, I would say a colleague of mine actually said that great design is inevitable, right? And I think that's very impactful for me, because I think when you have a narrative or you've established some strong conceptual base for architecture and design, it kind of lends itself to an inevitability, as well as having a very strong rationale for all of the design moves and all of the architecture decisions that are made.
So what's an example of how you have applied storytelling to the design process?
So that's a good question. So just for instance, from one of our latest projects, what we do is our process is fairly straightforward, right? When we engage with the client, we will receive typically from them, a host of requirements, right? And images they found or things that they like. And oftentimes, Owen, what we find is, again, to take a quote from a famous architect, Frank Lloyd Wright said, oftentimes when he talks to his clients, he actually doesn't talk about architecture. And I truly believe that, because what happens a lot of times is people's requirements and their dreams are often centered around family, passions, hobbies. And so usually within those, sort of non-architectural items, we find a way to kind of create a story around architecture. And that, again, usually is a very good way to help clients achieve their ultimate goals in terms of architecture and design. So specifically, we're doing a project now, the Austin Rose, which is a traditional style home located in Roslyn Harbor, New York. And this client, it's a young couple. They grow a lot of the food that they eat. They're very, very much into sustainable, practices. They are, very keen as far as landscaping is concerned, trees. And so, building a home for a couple with these requirements, we essentially, from even the name of our project, the Austin Rose, through to the architectural language, is a sort of strong storytelling surrounding, a traditional architectural styling, the landscape design, the family's, again, desire for lush landscaping that, is a part of their daily lives. And so once we start to weave this story together, it kind of makes our design moves feel very obvious. And I think are checking, end up checking the boxes of what our clients ultimately are looking for.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I think it's all about discovery, and stories are obviously a great way for us all to communicate with one another without having to be too literal about anything.
Sure. So and I can establish, I'm sorry, I can go just a little bit further. So the home, we start with the forecourt, right, which is, the user's first experience of the home. And we sort of weave a story about how that experience, happens, how it unfolds, right? Do we stumble upon this home or this building and, go inside or around, or are we providing a layered experience, right? And so for us, we decided that having, sort of a foreground of a building and an experience, and then sort of mid-ground, and then the home in the background allowed a little bit more layered experience for a user, where you can either go, down one path, or you can go into this side of the building, or you can take this path. And so we found, again, through our narrative, it actually helped create a more interesting architecture, and one, ironically, that was more functional as well.
Right. Beautiful. And I like how your tagline is designing spaces beautifully. And as we were talking about yesterday, one should never be ashamed of beauty or embarrassed of it, or we should be able to talk about beauty openly amongst each other, I think. It's always great to be a champion of beauty and aesthetics, and beauty and aesthetics are not only for the elites.
Absolutely.
They're for everyone,
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something in our practice we strive for, to ensure that there is beauty in our projects, right? Many years ago, I worked in a very high pressure design office in Manhattan, and there was a lot of tension in the office, and the studio manager at the time said, look, guys, we're not doctors. We're not saving lives. We're here to make these spaces and buildings look beautiful. And
Right.
That really struck with me, because I think as a society, we are, there's a lot of benefit in good design, and in putting beauty all along the way in our floor plans, in our buildings, in pretty much all of our projects.
I think it's a big contract of the architect, and so I think sometimes that gets lost in the mix somehow. So speaking of which, so you have a background working in larger firms, right? You worked at Wilson Associates and Ramsa, and so I think it's really interesting when folks have these big firm experiences and then they bring it back into their own local communities. So and now you're working on smaller, more intimate projects again. So what are you bringing in from that kind of big world back into the regional work you're doing now?
So that's a great question. I think when you're working at a bigger firm or larger corporate entity, above a certain number of employees, you sort of have to start to employ drawing standards, file organization standards, and these things, are good, right? They help us to work more efficiently. And so I find that I have incorporated a lot of those, practices into our company and the way we work, which, again, gives our clients the ability to get almost the service of a big firm, but in a hands-on team. And, we're able to avoid some of the negatives, right? In a larger setup, there tends to be a little bit more bureaucracy. Things maybe move a little bit slower, like a big ship trying to turn. And so we find that in our practice, being hands-on, being able to solve problems on the fly, if there are issues on the site, we're able to address them a lot, more nimbly and quickly. And so we view ourselves as sort of providing the best of both worlds, right? You get that big company design service, but also the agility of a smaller team that can help to execute the project even better.
Yeah. So you've been doing some mostly residential work, and you've done a couple retail and restaurant hospitality projects. Looks like you did some work out in China, which I think I've noticed a lot of architects these days are kind of able to do more experimental work overseas sometimes with some crazy sustainability ideas and stuff. And so you worked on a pool bar there that had passive cooling strategies.
Sure.
And tell me about that, and what guides your decision about low tech versus high tech in terms of your sustainability strategies you apply.
Good question. So, these things are going to be project specific, right? So depending on the particular circumstances of a project, again, if we have, a project located in a temperate climate, with an ideal orientation, 15 degrees east of south or something like that, our strategies will differ versus if there are challenges, right, with our building orientation or just our general site conditions. In this pool bar specifically, it was, a relatively small building that was round, and, it was, sort of surrounded by pool, by a pool, and the, other buildings were far away. And so, we felt with a structure that was mostly glazing, it was, sort of necessary to employ these sort of passive cooling strategies of these louvered screens to help to cool the space and relieve the building's dependence on, mechanical cooling. And so, doing that and then also integrating it into our design narrative, our storytelling, sort of like win-win, because it then feels a little bit more seamless to the users of the building, to the owner, to the client. It's not like an added, item. It's really more something that's integrated seamlessly into the project.
Yep. And so, yeah, you're bringing this kind of, I guess, narrative strategies into some of these fast casual and restaurant concepts. So you did a place called the Meetup Grill, and that's got a lot of, it's very playful and robust. It's got strong materials, and so how do you address working with brands like this, and how to bring out the power of the brand
so that's a good question, Owen. And in addition to design and architecture, one of the things that we believe strongly in is branding, right? And what that means is sort of the heart and soul of a company, and again, that goes back to a story, right? And
sure.
I heard the other day someone say, hey, if Nike were to open a hotel, I think the average person probably in their minds would see what that would look like based on the brand, right? Whereas if Hilton were to start a sneaker line, we don't know what that would look like. And so I think understanding the brand and the story and the culture behind a company and an entity helps people to understand and embrace the values that are being offered. And so for us, that's where a lot of times in commercial projects like these food and beverage spaces, that's where we start, right? And so for us, being ahead of our client is very important, right? So whether it's proposing sustainable materials that our client is not aware of, that's a way we found to bridge, again, the idea of having a robust, durable, environment with, again, addressing this need for strong branding and design narrative together.
Right. So, but most of the work you're doing now is residential, right? And you told me that you're starting to get into larger, more kind of landscape involved, sort of larger estate projects, and I could see how that might eventually blend into some of this hospitality and possibly hotel and resort interests that you may have. So, and also your team is very tight knit, and you also have kind of a background in design build, and it seems like you're very tightly integrated with all the construction that happens and everything too, right?
Correct.
So now you're so landscape seems to be like a new thing for you. So how's that changing your relationship with architectural form and environmental stewardship?
So that's a good question. So for us, once we're now engaging with larger sites, the landscape, the environment, these elements become a lot more important. So we are fortunate to have clients who are very invested in landscaping and the overall environment. And so we begin at an existing survey where we're identifying all of the trees on our sites of an acre or more, and we're studying the types of trees, the root zones, and we're seeing how our building and our architecture can sort of exist in and around all of these items, and sort of preserve some of these natural elements on the site, because it's very important in architectural form that how you're building meets the ground, right? Like that landscape is essentially a buffer, and it's an additional layer that actually affects, I think, the design and the form of our building significantly.
So what do you, as you're doing more of these estate type projects, and so is it a combination of adaptive reuse and new builds, or is it mostly new build?
Yeah, so in New York, when you're working in and around New York City, you're mostly going to be doing a lot of adaptive reuse, right? There's going to be a lot of renovations, gut renovations. In the case of some of these larger properties, it's a tear down, and it's going to be building a new structure. And there are, I think, distinct differences and challenges with both. We've found, if you have a little bit more flexibility if we're now creating a new structure in terms of meeting our clients' needs. And so, that's been an exciting, I think, challenge for us. Whereas, with the adaptive reuse, you're sort of, kind of continuing a story, or you're forming a new one based on some ties with the past, or with the existing structure. So it's a delicate balance, and I think both have their respective challenges.
Sure. So you described, so I think you have a background in music as well.
I do. So in a former life, I produced music when I was younger. I worked in a recording studio. I had the privilege of working on some pretty cool, projects. A Grammy-nominated project. I, had a lot of fun. And I have a poster on my wall that says that music is liquid architecture, and architecture is frozen music. And
wow.
For myself, I think that the two are almost inextricably linked. So for instance, when I hear music, when I hear specifically chords, for instance, an A minor chord, I see color, right? I see the color red.
Right.
And I think that sort of sensory, ability translates spatially as well into architecture. And, I'll share a quote from Le Corbusier, one of the founders of modern architecture. And, it says, is any combination of stone, wood, brick, and glass architecture? And I think the answer is no, but I think nowhere is that more obvious than in music, right? Like, we can all absolutely agree that any combination of guitar, drums, and bass is not music. And so I think that that has informed our practice in composing the various building elements in such a way that it moves the user, it moves the the person viewing the structure. And I think that has been our favorite song gives us a feeling. And I think similarly, a great building and a great structure also similarly gives you a feeling. And I think that's what we strive for as a part of our, design process.
Yeah. And it seems like it's a good metaphor for you on a collaborational level too, right? Because it really, when you sound like you really talk about your team like you guys are a band.
So, so for myself, forming and maintaining long-term relationships, I think are just, I guess who I am personally, but also I think it's integral for collaboration, right? So when, you've worked with someone for 10, 15 years in a capacity of architecture and design and worked on numerous project types, you get to know each other creatively on a level that I think allows for better work,
Yeah.
A more seamless collaboration, and a more open and honest relationship that's based on, trust.
Sure.
So,
you've had like some really long-term relationships on your team, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
The majority of, partners that I have and people that I work with is, again, we're working together in excess of 10 years. And I think that, again, I have found it to be extremely rewarding, to kind of grow as an architect and, have these kinds of collaborations, that have, sort of evolved over time. And I think we've only benefited from having, these kinds of relationships as a practice.
Sure. Well, yeah, especially when you're so kind of hands-on in the design build and the whole end-to-end process. It must be satisfying for you to really be involved in, the full life cycle of the building, as opposed to just exclusively focusing on representations of buildings and handing them off to someone else. Right.
Yeah. And so this is where I think, maturing as a designer and an architect, is most meaningful.
Yeah.
Earlier in my career, you design something and it's nice, it's beautiful, I don't know. And, sometimes these things never get built, right? You're a paper architect or, whatever they term
Sure.
that is. And what I have grown to understand and become a lot more versed in is, bridging the gap between design and your ultimate end product. And I think that is where, we're able to provide significant value for our clients, right? Who come to us with a bundle of excitement, some visions, maybe imagery, but getting from that point to a finished building, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of, a lot of work. And that is where I think we've excelled in our practice.
And do you feel like, getting more hands-on with construction and the whole construction process has really changed the way you approach your design process as an architect?
Sure. I mean, because to be real, I think, in an ideal world, right, the architect or the artist, is able to execute a vision. And, it is sort of purely, built. But in reality, there are, budget constraints, there are contractor, issues where they may be trying to find more, inexpensive ways to achieve things. And so, I think overall, as an architect that, you're sort of looking a little bit into the construction part, is that you're able to, again, find a way to bring that vision best to life. Because in reality, as we're practicing, things change, things shift. And, again, achieving that ultimate vision, sometimes it gets watered down. Sometimes it actually doesn't even happen. And I think being able to make that happen speaks to your strength as an architect or as a design professional.
Take it that comes from a lot of things we've been talking about here, that the tightness of your team and your deep knowledge of construction, design, build, and the intimacy that you guys have with your projects. So there must be a tension though between a lot of these sort of advanced sustainability strategies that you're introducing and the high quality results that you want and the design innovation that you're looking for.
Sure.
And then, especially with adaptive reuse scenarios, So how do you balance this tension with the, you know, I would imagine in a lot of cases, architect just kind of hands off a project and doesn't have to think about this stuff, and their project just gets butchered, but they don't have any real authorship in it, right? But in, you know,
It's no, that's true. You know, this is what you've described. I think the challenge for us as a practice and as architects is that, you know, we're balancing, you know, the owner's requirements. We're balancing, you know, the, you know, just the landscape of the, you know, the climate, whether it's the economy, you know, we're sort of bringing everything together, right? The contractor, and we're sort of functioning as, you know, sort of that tie or unifying piece of the team where, you know, we are, again, pushing the project forward in regards to sustainability, right? That is our sort of, you know, mission. And the client, again, is looking, you know, they're looking for us to provide that leadership, right? There's that trust that we have with our clients, and that's extremely important because, again, different factors may allow, you know, different scenarios to enter into a project at any point. And so I give a specific example. We're working on a project now where we're, you know, we're specifying a, you know, wood alternate siding, and it's actually a product that's upcycled from rice hulls, and it's you know, it's a very sustainable product, and, you know, will significantly you know, contribute to the life cycle of the building, and it's, you know, very good for the environment. And so we are introducing these design ideas. We're educating our clients, and we're sometimes battling with contractors, but ultimately our clients place this trust in us, and we're empowered, you know, to you know, bring these ideas to fruition, see them through. And you know, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve our clients, the environment, and we're here to do the right thing as architects.
right. So tell me about a little bit about how you guys are working with tech, or how your workflow works in your studio. Are you guys working in, do you guys work in BIM, or are you more based in drawings, or?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we are, you know, we are traditionally, we are working in, you know, we do some BIM, we do, you know, AutoCAD, we do Revit, we do, you know, we do the you know, sort of popular programs that are out there. And, you know, we're also integrating, you know, AI and these other technologies where it makes sense for our practice. We have found, you know, largely that, you know, the, you know, sort of purest way, you know, to, you know, foster and express our creativity has still been mind to pen to paper.
Sure.
And, you know, with that, you know, we think technology really is a tool, right, that should aid us in this process, but it's not a solution. And so whether it's production or tasks that can be significantly, you know, reduced in terms of time, we happily employ, you know, AI and other technologies. But I think, again, from a design-centric standpoint, you know, we do a lot of hand sketching. Like that really helps, you know, again, gives you that, you know, sort of pure DNA of your idea that you're communicating to the client in the simplest way. And I have found, you know, your idea, you know, your idea is good or maybe not as good, and you can't really hide it once you've put the pen to paper. But I think like with technology, we can dress it up and maybe it looks pretty, but the integrity of the idea may not be as solid. And so the purest way we found is really hand drawing is still a major part of our practice, you know.
Oh, that's great. So is there a tool that you've adopted, like let's say over the last 3 years, that's really changed the way you guys work?
So that's a good question. I would say, in terms of our workflow, again, having long-term collaborators, we're able to have honest conversations with each other.
Yeah, sure.
So some partners, we're able to, pull us aside and say, look, the way you guys are presenting your designs is a little outdated. And, we've, been a little bit more focused on, delivering, our design and our design work through, a little bit more efficient means, simpler, so that our clients, again, can, with a simple click, they can, go to products that we specified. So, I think all around, we've definitely, increased our, I think, awareness when it comes to, providing more tech-oriented processes for our various projects. But it varies, and we're always on the hunt to, again, be as efficient as possible. Because we have a small team, right? So with a small team, to be able to deliver on time, we have to be smart about utilizing technology and how we produce, drawings and designs.
Sure. So let's just say 3 years from now, how do you see your practice moving forward, and what kind of tools or practices are you going to be embracing, do you think? Moving into what the new kinds of projects you're looking into moving into?
So, good question. One of the things I would say now, as we're getting into larger projects, when we're moving into areas now where our clients are looking to build forever homes, as opposed to, some of the other projects that we've done, I think it makes us have to focus on, timelessness and providing, design and architecture that can really stand the test of time, not just aesthetically, but in terms of materiality. And so we are constantly on the hunt for innovative materials and systems as far as, how our clients can, successfully enjoy their property and their home and, steward it on to the next generation. So I would say, as we evolve as a practice and as we grow, we're looking for, constantly, more, environmentally sustainable products. We're looking to absolutely become more efficient around things like drawing, production, which ultimately are sustainable. And, as the various technologies emerge, I think it's our responsibility to, to kind of, get with what is working and what's working well. We have to be flexible and we have to adapt.
Sure.
Because I think that's how a practice moves forward, in time, in our space, in the architecture world. We have to be, again, for our clients, for contractors, we have to be at the forefront of this architecture process.
Well, I'd like to offer to help you take you forward into the world, Omar. Next time you have an adaptive reuse project, I'd be more than happy to collaborate with you guys and bring you into the world of point clouds and LiDAR and having a central source of truth for your project, which is, as you know, really important for coordination and everything throughout the whole life cycle of the building. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with today, Omar?
Sure. So, again, having, established practice and growing, we think, again, it's important for people to understand, what it is that we do, how we do it, what our strengths are. I heard someone say that, if in a sentence you cannot say what differentiates you from your competitors, then you're no different from them. So, to that, I would say in a sentence, we are different because I view us really like a customer service company that provides design and architecture. And I think that, our clients have found in us a resource that provides very valuable, again, assistance from an idea through to execution and occupancy, and ultimately the completion of a construction and design and architecture project. And, we look forward, to growing, serving our clients even better, and, making our mark on the landscape, the New York and beyond architecture landscape.
Oh, thanks, Omar. Yeah, we had an episode previously that was really focusing on, acoustics of space and how to model acoustics. And a woman who was on the show was saying, her name is Margaret. She was saying that really the greatest skill that an architect can have is the ability of deep listening. And she was a student of a composer named Pauline Oliveros, who created this kind of school of deep listening, right? And I think you've demonstrated a number of different strategies that you use in order to kind of be able to really absorb these stories and really understand your customers on a deeper level. So obviously, you started deep listening with your background in music and production. And so it seems to really carry through as a signature of yours.
So I'll share one other thing. So when I was, much younger, and we would have a song, and we would, play it for, whether it was a record label or whoever it was, what I found then was that, people would say whatever, right, for whatever reason, but there were oftentimes body language. There's one instance, this gentleman, his pupils started to dilate, and I knew then that he liked what he was hearing, even if he was saying something different. And I think, really understanding people, because oftentimes with architecture and design, we see a pretty picture, but what is it we like about the picture? Do we like the feeling? Do we like the material? Do we like the space? Do we like the sense of comfort? Sometimes our clients don't know, right? And I think our, value has really been really listening to our clients and really understanding their needs and providing, that design and architecture guidance to achieve what it is that they ultimately are looking for. And sometimes they're just not able to communicate it clearly. And we have to, as professionals, extract that info and infer sometimes, and then deliver. And,
Yeah. Well, it's also, like you said, I think what we talked about yesterday is that beauty is really what gives something value. And the more that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about beauty, because it's really what, and just like you said, a pile of rocks and glass and stone is that architecture. You see it, it when you see it, something beautiful when you see it. And clearly you've demonstrated your ability to deliver beauty in some incredible work here. And so thank you for doing so, Omar, and really amazing to hear about your strategies and and your work and your evolving practice. So it's great to meet you today. And everyone, please have a look at Clennon Design. It's ClennonDesign.com, spelled CLENNON design.com. And thanks, Omar. Hope to catch you next time I'm in Oyster Bay.
Oh, absolutely. Give us a call. We'll, go by, some cool restaurants here. There's a lot to do in Oyster Bay. It's a historic town. But yeah, people can reach out to us. We're active on social media, Clennon Design Studio on Instagram. And, we're always looking to, talk about our work, collaborate with, new people. So I'm excited. Thank you, Owen, for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And,
absolutely.
Thank you again.
It's great to see you, Omar, and best of luck with all your work. And I'll be keeping tabs on it. Okay, take care.